Hi, my name is Morten, and in this video we will be looking at how to display the content of the visitor's basket on a basket page. So let's get to it. So far in the masterclass we have done the browse functionality of the web shop. This includes category navigation, going to categories, seeing product listing on a category page including prices, a link to our product page, and the ability to add a product to a basket. Once we add products here, we also want to see the content of the actual basket that we're using. In the previous video we saw how the basket was stored against the database and that the user on the site will have a cookie that points to the basket in the database. So the basket ID here points to the user's basket, and that is the content that we would like to show here on the page. Up here in the far right corner we have a link that points to a page called /cart. Of course this shows a 404 because we haven't created that page just yet. That is what we're going to do as the first thing. So let's try to go in and review what we have in our solution. Right now we have used the partial view controller for the category navigation. We have used the category and the product controller to display category content and product content. But we also have the masterclass basket controller, and this is the one that we want to use and populate in order to show the content of the basket on the basket page. So obviously, as we have done before, we need to go into the backend of Umbraco. We need to go to settings and we need to create a new document type. We will call this masterclass basket. Click on save and let's go to our home controller document type and go to permissions and add that as a valid child node type and click save. Now we can go to our content page, create a new page using the masterclass basket controller and call this cart. Save and publish. Go back and hit F5. Now the basket page is actually populated properly inside Umbraco, so now we don't get a 404 anymore. Now we just need to map the Ucommerce basket data for this user over to the view model that we have on the basket page. So let's go back to the controller. And in here we are interested in populating the view model that we are returning here in the index method. In the next exercise we are also going to update the actual content of the basket. So right now we just want to display what we have as the first thing. So let's try and do that. Let's review the using statements that we have up here. We're going to use the Ucommerce entities v2 namespace. This is where we will find the actual purchase order. We will also be going to use the Ucommerce API. We will also be using Ucommerce.runtime. So those are all the top level APIs that we've used so far and we will keep on using. So the first thing that we're interested in is finding the current basket for our visitor. We want to assign this to a Ucommerce purchase order. In Ucommerce, a basket and an order is the same object type, which is the purchase order. A basket is just a purchase order in an earlier state that has not been completed yet. This makes it easier for us to work with as developers. To grab that, we will be using Ucommerce API transaction library.getBasket. In here we can specify an optional parameter to create the basket if it does not exist. We're not interested in that because that means that site crawlers and stuff like that will most likely fill our database with empty baskets very quickly. So we only want to allow the creation of a basket if someone actually puts a product into his basket. So we will leave this to false. GetBasket returns a basket object, and on that basket object we can find the actual purchase order. So let's grab that. Now we have the basket. Now we just need to map it into our basket model. Primarily we are interested in figuring out what products we actually have added to our basket in the first place. So I will start out by grabbing the order lines from the basket and iterate that and map that into our view model. So on the basket object we have a list of order lines that we want to display. And to do that we will create a new order line model. And we will add that to our basket model. And then we want to map the data that we have that are relevant to show. And in this case, we are interested in displaying the SKU. We're interested in showing the variant SKU as well. Notice that here on the basket order line, we do not have a reference back to the actual product. I cannot say basket order line.product. This is because in a commerce system, it doesn't make sense to have the product stored directly against an order line. There's different reasons for this. The first reason is that orders will exist for many more years than products will. Products tend to go out of stock, out of production and stuff like that, which means that if we delete a product inside our system, we cannot see the actual information from the basket anymore. So that means that if we link our products directly to the basket, we would always have to have those products never deleted. Also, the information on the products will most likely change. Maybe the prices will change, maybe the descriptions will change, maybe any kind of information can actually change on the product, which means that if we were reliant on the actual product, if we want to display the order line in the back end or in the front end, that information would be updated along with the product. So in this case, we're doing something called bounded context, which means that from the actual product, we will put the relevant information down on the order line. This includes the SKU and the variant SKU, which allows us to look up the product later on if we're actually interested in doing that. Maybe we can find it, maybe we can't. But in this case, we have just enough information on the order to identify what is the actual product that the customer has purchased. So the SKU and the variant SKU will help us with that. Also, the next thing that we will be mapping here is the price that we have as a total, which is a string. In this case, it's because we want to display a currency symbol as well, so it doesn't make sense to map it directly into a decimal. The price here is also special in the discussion that we just had. That is because that the price will update from time to time, which means that we cannot look up the price on the product to see what the price that the customer has actually received when he added it to the basket. Also, the customer would be a little bit annoyed if the price would update. If he would receive a cheaper price, that would be fine, but if the price goes up, that's not what he agreed on in the first place, and that will make a bad customer experience. In this case, when we add the actual product to the basket, we will also add what was the unit price that he received when he added the product in the first place. The total here is a decimal, and as I just said, we also want to display a currency symbol. So let's see how we can grab that. Actually, we don't want to map the total directly in like this. We have a concept that we used previously, which is a money object. So I will new up a new money object here, which takes in our value. In this case, it's the total of the order line. This includes tax as well. And then we need to specify a currency symbol, or the actual currency that the customer is buying within. And in this case, we want to specify the billing currency from the actual basket. Whenever the basket is being created, the billing currency will be set to the culture of the visitor, what he's displaying the site in right now. Then we're going to do a toString here on this as well. This means that the customer will automatically see the right currency symbol formatted in the right way based on his user culture. So we will take care of the currency symbol, the decimal formatters, whether the symbol should show before or prior to the actual price. Next thing, we want to display the product name as well. And the last thing that we're interested in is the order line ID, because we're going to be using that when we need to update the order lines in a few exercises. And of course, we also want the quantity of the order line. And that should be it. This is the initial stuff that we need from the actual order lines. We also have the tax and the total of the order. We're interested in mapping that. Again, we will be using the money object for this. And again, we will take the billing currency and do a toString. And that's it. Let's try to build it and see what happens. So the solution was built. Let's go back to the front end and refresh the page. And here we have the order on the front end again. We can see that we have 4 products total in the basket spread across 3 order lines and 3 products. One here which is a product without any variants, and then we have the black and white Wonderland shirt in 2 different variants added down here. We have the remove button and update basket buttons here that we're going to implement in the next exercise. So here we can see the actual information that has been stamped down on the order line, the SKU, the variant SKU, and the product names. So that is all information that comes from the product, and we put that onto the order at the time that we add the product. So we don't have a reference to the product itself. That's because of the discussion that we had before. But also another good reason in this discussion is that the transaction system and the catalog system in Ucommerce has actually been split, so there's no connection between them. When we showed prices on the front end, on the category page and on the product page, we used the price group of the context that we have on the site right now. If we review the order that we have here on the context, we will also see that there is no concept like a price group anymore, because the price group is something that exists in the catalog system. In the transaction system, instead, we have a billing currency that we're using in order to figure out what is the customer actually buying in. And whenever we add the product to the basket, we will use the information from the catalog system and use that on the order, which is part of the transaction system. So there is no link between the two systems, which is actually a good thing, because this means that you can also use the transaction system without actually having any products inside Ucommerce. So if you are in a situation where you don't need a product catalog, or the product catalog exists somewhere else and you don't want to synchronize it for some reason, which could make sense, then it is possible to use the transaction system without actually having any products in the catalog. The orders here actually doesn't care whether or not you add a product that exists in the catalog system. This makes the platform very flexible in order to do more dynamic products and products that does not exist inside Ucommerce. Alright, so here we have the actual stuff coded out. Now it's your turn to do the same thing. So now you need to pause this video here and redo the basket page like I just did. Use the handouts to find the relevant APIs and review the order and the order lines and the information that we have available. Once you're done with this, come back for a brief recap. You should use 10 to 15 minutes on this exercise. Alright, welcome back. Let's do a quick recap before we end in this video. What we saw this time was that in the basket page we wanted to display the information coming from the basket. We used transaction library.getBasket to grab the basket from the database using the cookie that the user has on his computer. We had an optional parameter whether or not we wanted to create the basket if it did not exist. We reused the default parameter, which is false, which means that we are not getting unintentionally empty baskets. The basket will be created once the user is adding a product to his basket. We reviewed the basket model, and we saw that a basket and a purchase order in Ucommerce is the same thing. A basket is just a purchase order in an earlier state that has not been checked out yet. We also saw that the catalog system and the transaction system are disconnected between each other, so you can use the transaction system without the catalog system at all. We also saw that we have no link back to the product from the order line for that exact reason. We also saw, for the same reason, that on the purchase order we do not have a price group, but we only have a billing currency that will be used when he add a product to the basket in the first go, or when the basket is actually being created. At that time we will use the information coming from the catalog system and put that down onto the order that we have available. Same thing goes for the products. When we add them to the basket, we will take information from the product and put it down to the actual order line. And that's it. In the next exercise, we're going to update the content of the basket by changing the quantities, removing order lines, and stuff like that. So thank you for watching and see you in the next video.